Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dyslexia Life Hacks Show. I'm your host, Matthew Head. And in this episode, I'm talking to Jack Churchill, OBE. He is CEO and co-founder of Empowering Tech Group, which includes such brands as Scanning Pen and Succeed with Dyslexia. Jack's journey into technology started in 2003, where along with his friend Toby, he worked on converting speech to text, and Scanning Pen was born. He's come a long way from that, now in multiple countries, and as we've already said, he has an OBE. I'll put links to Jack's companies as well as other things we talk about in the show notes, which will be available at dyslexialifehacks.com/podcast. Welcome to the show, Jack.
Hi, Matthew. Thanks so much for inviting me on today.
No problem at all. Now, you're currently held up in a hotel room at the BDA conference today and for the rest of the week. How is that going so far?
That's right. I only just arrived, but the British Dyslexia Association throw a international conference typically every 3 years, but because of COVID, this conference hasn't happened for about 6 years. And it's an opportunity for people to come together and to hear the latest in research and from across the world. So there'll be people here from America and Australia and all over the place to come and share knowledge and ideas and best practice on dyslexia.
Nice. You'll be doing lots and lots of networking, I'm sure.
Yeah, we're actually one of the sponsors of the event, and we get to have a little table and speak at the opening reception. So that will be good fun.
Yeah, as always is. Is that sponsored as in Scanning Pen?
Scanning Pens is sponsoring, exactly.
Ah, cool. So one of the things I as I was scanning through your profile stuff, you have won many, many awards across your sort of 20 odd years in business. Which one of them would you think would be closest to your heart? Which one made you the most kind of excited when you realized you were going to be presented with it?
That is a really good question. And, I didn't have the questions up front, so I haven't had time to mull that one over. So you caught me on the spot. But I would say I was really proud to win BET Awards Company of the Year. The BET Awards is the biggest EdTech awards. It's the biggest education technology conference in the world. And it happens normally at Excel in London in January time. And we'd applied for that for so many years. And we were just absolutely blown away to win in 2019 and in 2020, actually. So to have two BET Awards is fabulous. And then I was quite shocked to win an OBE as well, or to gain an OBE last year in the King's New Year's Honour. So that was quite a surprise, actually. I had no idea. And I actually thought it was a scam when I got an email through from the Cabinet Office to say, you're okay to be getting an OBE. Yeah, I can imagine. Is that real? It was all a bit surreal. And then actually both myself and my business partner, Toby Sutton, we both founded the business. We both had to go to Windsor Castle at separate times last year and collect our awards. I got mine from Prince William. Now,
oh, nice.
The Prince of Wales. So that was really special. Take the family there and have a day out.
Yes. Yeah. And it's nice, isn't it, when all the work that you've been doing gets recognised in that way?
No, 100%. I think sometimes certainly for me, I was very much in the woods, busy just working, beavering away, building a business, building a brand, and it gives you a moment of reflection, I guess, to be able to look back and think of what you've done and what you've achieved, actually. And it was quite nice for the whole business, actually. I know we collected it, but it really showed off the hard work of the whole team, as it were. So that was nice.
Yes. Yeah. I guess that is a very good point, isn't it? You are the face and the name that picks it up, but it's a reflection of the business as a whole that you're even considered for such a thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely 100%. We've got a team of more than 100 people now, and could not have done half the things without them all. So really proud of them and what we've managed to collectively achieve. Teamwork, as it were.
Yes.
The dream. Yeah.
Definitely. Well, what I want to do is take you back to before business was a thing. Well, maybe not before business thing, but certainly scanning pens and stuff was a thing. And sort of get to understand when you sort of discovered you were dyslexic. I think I read some of your profile. You were a teenager at that point in life. How did that sort of come about?
Yeah, I really struggled at school. I was just struggled to learn. I struggled with reading. And anyway, my parents sent me for a dyslexia assessment when I was about 14 years old, and I was diagnosed with dyslexia. And actually, it was quite a watershed moment for me, really. I was really pleased. I know there's talk about diagnosis and labeling and all that kind of stuff, but for me, it was a really great relief to get that assessment and therefore start getting some extra help and extra support in exams, extra time, extra accommodations. And those things made such a difference, actually. And looking back at, only in more recent years at my childhood, I remember walking into the classroom at the start of each week and they'd have the marks from the previous week's test on the wall. And I was never very tall. I would always be very close to the bottom of the list every time. And I think actually it was a reflection on, I always just assumed it was, my report said, it could do better. Jack could try harder. Jack could listen more, blah, blah, blah. But actually, I genuinely think that there was, at least in part, my dyslexia was holding me back from keeping up with my peer group. And so by getting those accommodations, it really levels the playing field. And, I couldn't recommend it enough to anyone who thinks that they've got a child or a student who might be dyslexic to get them screened and get them tested.
What do you think was the catalyst that got your parents thinking, actually, we need to get Jack through a dyslexia assessment? Because, some of them school reports that you sort of cited already, people can read that two ways, can't they? And you hear about adults who found out they were dyslexic in their sort of 30s and they're realising, hang on, all this stuff makes sense now. But your parents clearly thought, well, actually, there's clearly some neurodiversity going on here. We should get Jack assessed.
Yeah, I will ask my mother that. Actually, it's quite a good question because my brother who's 10 years older than me is also dyslexic and was also diagnosed around the same time. So I guess they thought that there might be a link. I think it had already been talked about back in the 80s, early 90s that there was something hereditary about it. So I think that's what probably set them off. But I would like to know why they. How they went about getting my brother assessed, because that would have been in the early 80s probably, or mid 80s. And late 70s, early 80s. And that was quite, I think that was quite advanced to be getting assessed in your early teens at that age. So I'd like to know who suggested it to them. So thank you for raising that.
No problem. Yeah. Yeah, in the 70s, early 80s, it wouldn't be necessarily the norm, would it? I find I'm quite rare to be assessed for dyslexia quite young, and that would have been like 1990, where I was about 6. So, let alone sort of a decade or so before that.
Yeah, I mean, my brother is coming up for his 60th birthday. So, and the British Dyslexia Association, I went to its 50th birthday celebrations just over a year ago. So,
yes, at Twickenham.
At Twickenham, yeah. So, British Dyslexia Association is not, is all around that time as well. So, very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned you got sort of adjustments there. What sort of things changed for you in your schooling after you found out you were dyslexic and get the right things in place?
Well, I think, both then and today, it's, the fact you're teachers. So, it's not just like the learning support person. All your teachers who teach you, whether it be English or maths or science, they would be informed of the fact that you have dyslexia and that you are possibly got a different learning profile, or you have got a different learning profile to the rest of the peer group. And as such, that needs to be respected and supported to a certain extent. So, I would be interested to read the school reports in the following years, because I wonder if they still say could try harder, could do better. I wonder if the mood shifted perhaps in those reports to reflect the fact that it wasn't just or behavioural and my fault, and that actually it was just dyslexia playing its part.
Yes. Yeah, I used to find an interesting when we had a substitute teacher, they may or may not got the notes, and they're kind of like, what's going on here? Like, they're giving you stuff, and you're like, actually, I'm dyslexic. Oh, and then like complete shift on how they were approaching the lesson happened. So,
you're right. It makes it more It makes the teaching faculty to be more inclusive and more open-minded, rather than just to think where every child is the same in their class, which I'm sure today people are a lot more open-minded on that fact. Anyway, you asked what kind of support did I get? I definitely got extra time. I got 20 minutes for every hour of GCSEs, which for me made a really big difference. I was really slow at processing, reading the information that was put in front of me. So having that extra time to reflect and plan and to write my answers, and it just kind of de-stressed the situation a bit too, because if you've got a bit more time, it allows you to not hurry as much as I probably would have done. And then obviously just some extra support. So I remember my maths teacher was incredibly patient. His name was Dr. Dalton, and he used to give me extra session every week on maths. And because, also with, you might think, well, what's dyslexia got to do with maths? But, a lot of it is if you've struggled to read the question for many years, you will struggle to answer the question. So
yes,
the numbers may not be a problem, but if you've really struggled with the whole learning process over many, many years, reading those questions and answering them in a timely fashion, and you've always found it difficult and got bogged down, that has a compounding effect, so that actually you need to have a lot of help later on to be able to catch up again with your peer group. And I think that's the situation I found myself in. And anyway, he was incredibly patient with me, and it made a big difference.
Yeah, you need people like that. And that's a very good point, isn't it, with the non sort of English heavy subjects, so we say, that actually you still have to read the question. So if every time you read a question, just that little bit, struggle that little bit, and it kind of compounds over the years. Even if the numbers aren't a problem, you got to kind of decipher what the question's asking in the first place. I remember at uni having to write all of the numbers back out with the right symbol because I was doing an engineering degree, so I could boil it out of the question rather than all being lost in the kind of text sort of thing. So you roll on through school, college, and you end up at university. So clearly the sort of adjustments had helped you get to that kind of level where you meet Toby. And first of all, how did the two of you meet? I think that would be quite interesting to start off with.
We were in the same year group together. We did totally different courses. I did publishing and information systems, and he did hotel and restaurant management.
Okay.
And this is at Oxford Brookes.
Yeah.
And which is a brilliant university, and it's doing really well nowadays. It's one of the, I think, leading universities in the country nowadays.
Yeah, I think so.
But we used to, we had lots of mutual friends, and we used to play a lot of pool together. So we used to go down to the local a few afternoons a week and play pool for many, many happy hours, actually. And we were quite competitive back then, and we still are quite competitive, I think. But we both ended up going on to do some different jobs afterwards, but then a few years later ended up coming together and deciding to do a business together. So,
yeah. So where did the sort of business that became Scanning Pen fit into this? So you graduated, then come up with the idea and come back together for that? Or how? Because I was sort of reading some of the bios on you, and it's a little bit fuzzy whether you're at university sort of doing it in the lab in the corner or whether it's something you thought of post-university.
When I was at university, I got to meet some people from Oxford University, actually, and they contacted me a couple of years after leaving uni and said, we realise that because I'd gone off and worked for a .com, for an internet company, and it was still quite a new thing back then in 1998 to work for a .com.
Yeah.
A couple of friends from Oxford got in touch and said, we're setting up an internet business and we don't know anyone else who's worked for an internet company. So would you be interested to come and work for us? And Another friend of mine said, you need to ask them what your remuneration will be. And I didn't even know how to pronounce the word, let alone how to spell it. But I said that, and I managed to get my first salary, which was great, rather than just being an intern.
Nice.
I went to worked for, it was an educational learning platform that they were going to share knowledge across European universities. And anyway, I worked for them for a couple of years, and it was one of those companies where, everything was doing really well. And so they were always looking for more people. So I reached out to Toby. I said, you might be interested in coming to work with these guys. They've got quite an interesting pan-European education platform. And he came and joined me there. And then I think around 2003, the internet bubble burst. And that, not just Toby and I, but the whole company found ourselves on the streets, unemployed. And so we were looking for jobs and things to do. And it was at that point we decided why didn't we set up our own business together, which was a bit of a bold move, but
yes,
has paid off in the long run, I think.
It certainly has. And what was the business in the early days? What was the original thing? Was it always going to be speech to text, or had you kind of had this other idea and pivoted to that as you walked through?
No, it was never going to be speech to text or anything to do with dyslexia. It was literally, we were excited. So this is around 2003 time. We were excited by the fact that the internet had really become something big then. Amazon and eBay and Yahoo, all these kind of companies had taken off. And we loved the idea of being able to have a shop front from your bedroom, as it were. So rather than going out to some marketplace in London and setting up a stand and selling our stuff, we could actually just have a marketplace from our bedrooms, as it were. So we decided to set up an online shopping business and start selling. This idea of being able to sell when we're asleep, people still come and buy from you. This has just seemed like a huge revelation to us, and we weren't quite sure what to get involved with. The first thing we did successfully were wheat blankets that heat up in a microwave.
Oh yes,
and slippers and that sort of stuff. So we took those to lots of the gift shows, Spirit of Christmas, and lots of other gift shows. But we soon realised that was a really hard slog trying to sell something you only make £10 profit on, that's quite bulky and all the rest. So we quickly learned that actually we wanted to sell slightly or higher value goods and not have so many products as well. So just have a limited number of products, but which made a decent margin so that it was all kind of worthwhile. Let's say that. And then I had a very fortunate introduction from my mother's partner, actually. I got to meet a company from Israel who were called Wizcom, and they made pen scanner technology, and they were successfully selling it in a number of different countries. And they actually had a pen called a reading pen. And at that point, I just thought, wow, this is really interesting, having a standalone device with a camera, a screen, and a speaker, and you swipe the pen over words, it reads aloud to you. 20 years ago, it wasn't, 18, 19 years ago, it wasn't that good, but we saw what it could do. We saw the power of the potential in it.
Okay, interesting. Because Geek's Corner, Engineer's Corner over here. So, what did so we say scanning pen number 1, or even scanning pen beta look like at the time, and how did that how did the first one look when you sort of started selling it, or even prototyping it before that?
So we became the UK kind of distributor for this company. They were a bit bored of being in catalogues and not getting enough recognition. You're lost in a catalogue with hundreds and hundreds of other products, hard to get seen. And we were willing, to go out and go to educational conferences and learning, dyslexia events, and show the pens off, get feedback from the schools, and start building a business out. we realized that getting case studies, getting evidence of success was really important.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the early days, as it were. And we went back to them time and time again and said, look, you need to make it better. You need to improve it, blah, blah, blah. And actually, our big breakthrough came about 8-9 years ago when we finally, after years of lobbying, we got approval for use in exams in the UK. So our pen could be used in any exam, GCSE or A-level, without the need for accommodations. And as long as it was your normal way of working, you could use it in your exams. And that's still the case today. And that was a really big watershed moment for us because overnight, the schools were desperate to get hold of these pens. So it kind of solved two problems for the schools. One, the exam boards realized that the children were going to leave school soon. They need to manage on their own. These kids can't have 10 years of human readers and then go out into the workplace and be expected to manage on their own. So the exam board was really forward looking and realized that actually, and we need to help the schools be more dynamic and get these children being more independent. So that was the one thing. And then the second point was that some of these schools just couldn't cope. There were so many children, whether they were international students, say from Poland, who didn't have English as their first language, whether they had dyslexia, whether they had just low literacy, undiagnosed literacy issues. So some schools had 30 children taking one exam who couldn't manage to read the questions. And so they didn't have enough rooms to put these children in. They didn't have enough human readers. So we really solved a problem for schools, as it were, by bringing this technology along.
Yeah. And is there anything different about the exam spec pen versus a sort of regular one? Is there some of the features taken off it? Any connectivity that's not allowed and all that kind of fun stuff?
No, great question. So the pen had to be, stripped down in a way. It had to not have any dictionaries on, not have any storage. So literally the pen has to just scan over words and read aloud. And the pens all come with headphones. So these students are now back in the main exam hall reading the questions on their own. They're feeling empowered. And the best thing the exam board did is they said it has to be your normal way of working. And so that was really clever because that is very true of a lot of accommodations in exams. Actually, they say normal way of working. So that means that students have to be using the pen throughout the year in the build up to their exams. They can't just be given it on the day. And that means they actually know there are limitations to a device.
Yes.
It won't scan things that are too large. It won't scan, things that are too tiny. So they know that it will be able to, they know how to use it basically successfully for their really important exam. And actually, I've met students who've had human readers in exams, and you never know who you're going to get on the day. It's a lottery. You may get someone who's got a very thick accent. You may get, you may not want to ask that person over and over again to read something out to you. You may not enjoy being put in a separate room. Why am I not with my peer group anymore? I've been pushed out down a corridor into a side room, and why is that? Well, why am I treated differently? So I just love the fact that this technology allows people to be back in the main exam hall, managing on their own. It can actually be used in Key Stage 2 SATs as well, not in the English part of the exam, but can be used in the rest. GCSEs, A-levels, International Baccalaureate, Cambridge, and also universities allow it to be used as part of text-to-speech access.
Ah, cool. How come it's not allowed to be used in GCSE English exams?
No, sorry, it can be used in GCSE English exams. It can't be used in the Key Stage 2 SATs English reading paper because they're testing reading ability.
Of course.
Key Stage 2 SATs. Right. Whereas all these other exams, they're not testing reading. And that's why it's really unfair not to allow access to the questions for those students. So I came across Wiltshire College, which is a college not far from where I'm based down near Bath. They had a couple of students who'd taken, I think, their functional skills maths exam twice. and both these girls had failed both times because they weren't able to read the questions. The third time, they passed using our pen because they were able to read the questions successfully. And you can only imagine what it does to your confidence when you fail time and time again. And it's down to the fact that you're dyslexic. So it is so important that accommodations are deployed in exams. And, I think the UK really sets, a leading light in accommodations in this way. I don't know anywhere else in the world which says any child can use this technology in any exam. For example, in America, a lot of students and parents have to fight for years to get appropriate accommodations for use in exams. And, if you're not testing someone on their reading ability, then why not let them use text-to-speech to support them in their exam?
Definitely. And you think about it, if before that shift with the examining bodies, you could potentially have had children who've used one of the pens for all the way through their kind of school days. And then they have to, as part of their exam prep, learn how to live without it to go in the exam because they're not allowed it. So that kind of mismatch. I like the way the pragmatic approach that it must be what you're normally doing. It is great because it's just a continuation. No, definitely not. But I was thinking actually before this change, which sounds like it probably really shifted gears for the company. How were you sort of pitching it beforehand? How was it? How was the uptake of scanning pens before that changed with the exam bodies?
So it was a much harder sell. We'd sell to probably the keener parents and some of the keener schools, but schools didn't know about assistive technology. They didn't know. A lot of schools, even I hate to say it, neurodiversity, dyslexia. Many teachers in many schools. I'd like to think now they do know about these things, but certainly 15, 18 years ago, there was much less awareness and knowledge. So I think we've come along, great leaps and bounds in educating the marketplace, the market, parents, teachers, and all the rest on actually we mustn't forget about this group of individuals who can super perform in the workplace if they're given the opportunities to get some qualifications and get on and get a job. They are going to be, as we keep hearing, much needed around any workroom or boardroom table because they're going to bring a different element to it, which is, going to perhaps bring more creativity, different perception, different angles, which will be really helpful in the development of whatever business or line of work they bring themselves to.
Yes, most definitely. And for anybody who's not familiar with what a scanning pen looks like and its sort of proportion and size and its functionality, how would you best describe it to them?
Yeah, so it's like a sort of highlighter pen. It's got a screen and a speaker, and it's got dictionaries on board. It's got storage facilities. It's got voice recorder. You can even connect them up to your computer and scan them, like using a keyboard, so you can scan straight into your device. It's totally rechargeable, battery operated, so you can use it pretty much for a whole week without having to recharge it again. And around that time, actually, I meant to say, around the time we worked more with exams in schools, we did actually really upgrade the pen. So we started working with a partner company called C-Pen, so it's the letter C-Pen, who are a Swedish firm. And we realized that they were perhaps the missing link that we really needed to help us bring the right technology to this next generation of students. So the newer technology, the latest pen's actually called the C-Pen Reader 2, and these pens are a whole different ballgame to the original ones. They're fast, they're accurate, they've got a lovely voice. In fact, they've got about 7 different accents, Australian, American, British, Irish, you name it. You can alter the accents. They Also work in a number of different languages. So the current Reader Pen 2 works in English, Spanish, French, and Italian. So it works exactly the same for all those different countries as well. And it's I'm really proud of the innovation us as an organization have pushed forward over the last few years to make products that are really relevant to the market. And in fact, we released one last year called the C-Pen Secure Reader 2, which is designed for the workplace. So previous to that, we would have to sell an exam reader pen to the workplace because of GDPR and storage. An employer wouldn't necessarily want an employee to have a device. It's a bit like using a phone. You can go out as a nurse into someone's home. You've got their medical records. If you start taking a picture with your camera, that image is probably going to be stored on your phone and iCloud or up in the cloud for a very long time to come. So we decided to create a pen specifically designed for the workplace, which doesn't store data, but it does also have a dictionary on it. So they can scan and hear, and they can also look up the meaning of the words if they're unsure about it. So for anyone in the workplace or even in prisons now, there's very low literacy in prisons, and our pens are in 2/3 of UK prisons in a small way at the moment. We'd love to get more take up, but I'm really excited to be able to support that group of individuals who we need to rehabilitate and get back into work and get them earning a living rather than being a tax burden on taxpayers.
Yes, definitely. And I think there's a lot of neurodiversity in that kind of, should we say, population. So it would be great to get them the right support to get them onto another path, wouldn't it?
Matt, have I totally confused you with all the different pens?
No, I'm following. I have a follow-up question. My understanding is that the secure pen is like the regular pen with no storage, and then you got the exam which strips all the dictionary and stuff back off it to make sure people.
That's right.
Trying to.
Brilliant. Well done.
Yes, well, I would have been so creative in the exam with a scanning pen trying to use the dictionary to get it to do stuff. So I can understand why they have to strip all that functionality off it.
Did you struggle in your exams too?
Yes, yeah. I had a bit like yourself. I had these sort of, I think by that 25% extra time and bits and pieces. But yeah, I've got excellent maths and science grades. All right, Matt. And then horrendous English grades at GCSE was never my thing, sort of having to write big essays and stuff out. But I didn't go back into education until I was 26, which is when I went to university. And by that point, I asked for all the help I could possibly get. So I had sort of the Claros and the laptop and scribes and stuff for the exams. Which
you got the disabled students allowance.
I did indeed, yes.
So such a wonderful scheme in the UK for supporting people to get their degree. Yes. It really is remarkable. I think it's coming up for its 50th birthday actually this year.
Is it? So, okay. Yeah, funny, isn't it? That and the BDA are similar age.
And actually, I would say DSA has been really valuable for driving forward. So I'll just explain the disabled students allowance is what you can get if you are a student who has a disability going off to university. You can get a technology, computer, software to help you with your studies. And I would just say I think it's really driven the UK to be a real innovative country for creating technologies around supporting people with their learning, whether that be mind mapping, whether that be text to speech, whether it be products for people with visual impairments, etc. There's a lot of innovation going on, which is benefiting people all over the world now.
Yes, definitely. I think the more and more people I've talked on this podcast, and the more I sort of am in the dyslexia world, the more I appreciate how being in the UK and what the UK do for people with neurodiversity, and how, being a British engineer myself, I understand how good we are at innovation anyway.
Yeah, brilliant.
It's interesting hearing how you've sort of upgraded the pen over the years. I'm curious to know, mainly because I'm in development, so I like these kind of geeky questions, but was there any particular thing you wanted to do in the early days? You were like, why can't it just do this thing? And then eventually, sort of, however many years down the line, you finally got it to do it, and you're like, yes, that's what I've always wanted.
Oh, well, there were a couple of examples. So firstly, the voice on the original pens was really, and I'm a big fan of Professor Stephen Hawking, the late Stephen Hawking, but the pen did have a voice which was quite robotic, and sometimes the children would go, "What did it say?" And that used to really get me, because I was wanting to provide a brilliant piece of technology that would give them quick support for their struggles. And with the launch of the C Pen product range that we launched, we were able to fix those problems and introduce the different accents and better quality sound. I was just going to say, one other little thing which we did do as well is the pens used to have a speed, so slow, medium, and fast. And if you had processing difficulties, if you made it slow, it would actually just slur the words and make it hard to understand. That was a frustration. And so actually, we solved that by introducing a word pause. So,
okay.
After each word, you can have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 second pause, so that you can hear the words without them being slurred, as it were. So being heard in a sensible way, which met your needs, as it were. So I was quite pleased when we managed to add that little improvement.
Yes. You don't need a pen to sound like it's had a few heavy whiskies before it's given you
100%.
Now, obviously, we've been speaking about how the company's evolved through, but as we all both know, the business is not one continuous line of successes. Is there any particular kind of bump in the road or full-on failure that you really sort of learned a lot from that helped you drive the things forward to where it is today?
I think for us, because of the whole discussion around Brexit, we'd had maybe 7 years ago quite a successful product now in the UK, and we thought we should take this now overseas. And so we decided to ignore Europe because we didn't know what the trading terms would be.
Right, yes.
Or we didn't even know the result of any future Brexit vote either. So we thought, let's skip Europe and let's go straight for international markets. And we went and Toby, my business partner, researched hugely and traveled to America and Australia and Canada. And we basically worked also closely with the Department of Business and Trade on how we could open up subsidiaries in those countries. And I'm really pleased we did it, but it has been, particularly in America, it's been very challenging trying to run a business from 3,000 miles away. And, we've kind of made a lot of progress. We sell a lot of pens in America. I can't deny that, but it's just been hard work. And, I wouldn't change anything for the world. I love my business. I love our colleagues in the States, but, it's definitely been a learning curve. We went macro, we went all across America. We then picked a bunch of the states and tried to do things differently. So we've constantly been looking and revising and improving our the way we sell in places like America, because America is 50 different states and they really are quite different. It's not all one country with 3 different time zones and different cultures and different languages. And no one should ever think just because they sound like they speak English that it's going to be easy to sell into America.
Yes,
straight away. It's definitely a market that should be respected and done carefully.
Yes, yeah. Mostly the pen wanted a few tweaks and changes, like you mentioned about accents and the right voices, but also maybe the sort of American English dictionaries and things like that would have had to be added in to get it to work over there.
We did all that, and I'm also I'm very proud to be on, for example, a fantastic board called the Assistive Technology Industry Association. That is the number one assistive tech association in America. And I'm one of the 6, I think, board members, which is, great. And I'm a board member of BATA, which is the British Assistive Technology Association as well. So, I've been very fortunate to see assistive technology on quite a broad perspective, I guess, across 2 different continents.
Yes, definitely. And I imagine, having interviewed a few Americans on this, that things are quite different in terms of how they see neurodiversity and dyslexia. And their, should we say, how they approach it can be very, very different. It's sort of surprising hearing the contrast. So how did you have to sort of slot yourselves into that market versus over here?
Well, I think, as I kind of allude to, you've got to kind of make a product and marketing materials that are fit for purpose. So you need to just not assume your UK marketing materials are going to be relevant in the States, even if you have changed the S's for Z's. It's not enough. You need to really be getting under the bonnet. America is also a huge leader in dyslexia, and Orton Gillingham, they really are huge pioneers in supporting people with dyslexia. And actually, I learned earlier on at one of the conferences, I was trying to work out how we fitted in, how Pen Scanners fitted in with the whole very much teacher-led remediation that they do. And then one of the Orton Gillingham teachers came up to me and said, "You know what it is, Jack? It's the fact that the student doesn't have 4 years to wait to read their homework tonight. They need to read their homework now. And your technology, or text-to-speech in general, can play a huge role in helping people to access the stuff they need to be doing today."
Yeah. Yes,
that was a penny drop moment.
Yeah, because a very good point is that you solve the immediate need, and then you sort of the Orton Gillingham and various other things can give them lifelong skills that they build up over a longer period of time. Yeah. And
there has been I would say there's definitely pushback from schools over the years to assistive technology, and is it cheating? Giving children this kind of assistance, and I would just say to anyone, is it cheating to use glasses? Because I know that I can't drive my car without glasses, and it would be very dangerous if I did. So it's really important that we get people, reduce stigma. Firstly,
yes,
we shouldn't have ideas of cheating and it being unfair on others. Let's get the young people the equipment they need to be able to study, to learn, to read books for pleasure.
Yes.
Let's get it to them today. And let's start at the age of 6, 7, 8. Let's not wait till they get off to university like yourself to then give you all the equipment you need. Let's get people using equipment from primary school age early on, so that they learn that there's no stigma, so they can manage on their own and be independent.
Yes, definitely. And I think it almost normalizes that then, like, assistive technology is just there, isn't it? As you rightly put, that some people wear glasses, some people don't. But it's not like we sit in a classroom with kids and someone got glasses on and be like, well, take them off or anything. So where I'd like to move on to is succeed with dyslexia. At what point in time did yourself and Toby think, let's do something along these lines? How did that sort of come about?
So, I guess we were 5, 6 years ago, we were attending a lot of trade shows, and they tend to be aimed at people with learning difficulties, dyslexia and things like that. And anyway, we came up with an idea around succeed with dyslexia, that something, a positive spin, how can we put out a positive message to the community and to do our bit in raising awareness around dyslexia in schools and in the workplace and to parents. And so we stuck it on mugs and stickers and pens initially and bags. And we gave them away at trade shows, and people seemed to like them. And And actually, we've managed to develop quite a nice community particularly on Facebook, I would say, and LinkedIn. And even actually on TikTok, we've got one video that's been watched on our TikTok 1 million times, which really shocks me. But so, yeah, we wanted to create something that was positive, and initially it was just an idea and a few words. But then we did actually set up its own company, so it's a corporate social responsibility, and it can do training for workplace and for individuals, and also it gets involved in campaigning. And we noticed about 6-7 years ago a number of organizations doing things around the color red in October, which is like Dyslexia Awareness Week, Dyslexia Awareness Month. And we thought, wouldn't it be nice because we've got businesses in different parts of the world and resellers, wouldn't it be nice to try and make the whole red color during Dyslexia Awareness something bigger and more exciting? And so we founded Go Red for Dyslexia. And we ended up creating amazing campaigns to spread awareness and lesson assemblies for schools, materials for teachers to talk to children about dyslexia. Because remember, a lot of teachers may find it difficult to explain to children what dyslexia is. So let's break down walls, break down stigma, and start sharing some knowledge and information. And so, yeah, we've done some brilliant campaigning over the years and brilliant festivals as well, where we tried to upskill people for free by attending one of our festivals. So yeah, it's been a really nice part of our organisation actually having succeed with dyslexia.
Yes. And how are you finding it? It's a very different thing to sort of say, for argument's sake, scanning pens. How are you finding running that kind of type of organisation versus what you're used to running before?
Well, we just tend to sort of, it runs alongside, as it were. I mean, it's run totally separately, but
yes.
It tracks along. It's got various landmarks during the year, depending on what's happening in the calendar. And yeah, we kind of leave it to run itself to a certain extent. And the online engagement, there's actually a lot of people posting questions and talking in these various Succeed with Dyslexia groups. So we kind of, to a certain extent, leave it to its own devices. We haven't quite yet formalized it as a charity. We're still kind of thinking about that. But at the moment, we're just quite happy with, where it's at and just doing a few things really well with it.
Yes. Yeah. And it's certainly got big presence. And if I didn't know that you were behind it, it wouldn't be the link across the scanning pens at all. They do very sort of different feels to the organisation. We try and, it's very much separate and, it's its own thing. So it's run as like a corporate social responsibility in a way. Yes. So looking to the future, with both companies or the whole umbrella of companies, where do you feel you want to take things?
Well, the core of our organization is pen scanning technology, and we're really committed to that. I know most hardware products have kind of disappeared, and we're now very much in a big software world, but we still really believe in simple to use, we'd call it mid-tech, sort of devices that children and adults can use anywhere, anytime. They just pick up the device, and they might be on a bus, they can swipe it over words, it reads aloud to them, it does what it says in the tin. And we believe there is still quite a market for this kind of technology. We think actually that there's so much of the world that doesn't have this kind of technology. So we think there's still quite a lot of opportunity. But it's been really tough times running a business. We've had COVID, cost of living crisis for schools, even struggling to pay their staff. So it's, the fact that we've got through some pretty major storms in the business world, I'm very pleased about as well, because, good on all the businesses out there for getting through a lot of pretty tough times, actually.
Yes. Yeah, most definitely. And you couldn't have thought of more events than COVID, and then within a few years, cost of living crisis to pinch things like yourself. Also, how are you finding with, obviously exams are one thing, but outside of that, with mobile phones forever increasing, becoming the not one-stop shop for a device for your technology needs, and it won't be long, or it probably does exist, apps that scan off the page and sort of do a similar kind of thing. How are you finding yourself to be differentiating from that and sort of standing up to that, so to speak?
Great question. And you're absolutely right. There are apps on your phone and devices that can, take a picture and read stuff back to you. I think the beauty of what we do is the simplicity of having a tool. It's like a highlighter pen that you can sit down with your homework, with your books, and you can get on and do your studying in peace on your own, and not worry about the internet, not worry about social media, not worry about the phone ringing. You can just get on, focus on your study during work hours, and then afterwards you can get on and have fun or do whatever you need to do on your phone or device. Saying all that, I do definitely think there's a lot of value. We believe very much in a toolbox approach. So during the course of your day, if you're on a computer, use the tools like text-to-speech or mind mapping or whatever it might be. And then, when you're reading in bed in the evening, maybe use your pen scanner, or you're in class where perhaps there's quite a big move to not have smartphones in classrooms nowadays. Huge moves actually happening all over the world on that front. So I just really feel like a distraction-free device is really important. I know that I get very easily distracted, and certainly when I was studying at school, being able to just focus on a task at hand and achieving it. And I would also couple that by saying books, we might again say books, everything's going online. It's all amazing. It's digital. Our kids shouldn't be in front of a tablet or a computer for the whole day. They should only be spending a few hours a day on their screens, and we need to have a blended approach to learning, which uses books, the wonderful printed books that are tactile and nice to handle. We've got brilliant libraries full of fantastic resources, handouts, all this kind of stuff. We need to still be doing plenty of stuff around print, and so we feel we've got a bright future with our pen scanner technology and all the wonderful books. I think more books were sold, in the last few years than in the previous years. So,
interesting.
I don't think there's a problem with books disappearing anytime soon.
No, I think you're right. And I do think there is definitely trends away from living on screens constantly. So cool. So before I round out the podcast, every guest that comes on the show gets 3 rapid fire questions from me. They don't necessarily need rapid fire answers from yourself, but they're just some quick ones to round the episode out. So shall we dive into question number 1?
Let's.
Cool. What prejudice have you had about dyslexia that has been proven wrong?
The whole, people probably said this before, the superpower notion, is definitely overrated.
Yes.
I think there can be great benefits to being dyslexic, but you kind of have to harness those powers in order to make the most of them. And you will still have a tough time in many other ways. It's not going to be, you get yourself the right tools to manage your day in the most suitable and productive way, for sure. But dyslexia definitely has its pros and cons, and is not just one amazing superpower that powers you through your day.
I totally agree. It's there are strengths, but there are also shadows to them strengths. Okay, and rapid fire question number 2: if an alien landed and you had to describe dyslexia to them, how would you do it?
Everybody learns in different ways, and I think neurotypical people, of which I think make up the bulk, learn in a more straightforward way, perhaps, than the neurodiverse people who need to find different routes to learning and achieving their goals.
Yes. Yeah, very nice. And the final question is rapid fire set, and you're not allowed to answer with your own technology for this one. But seeing as this is the Dyslexia Life Hack show, what is your favorite dyslexia life hack?
I'm going to talk about ChatGPT. So,
okay. Yep.
Someone I met last year who is South African. He is sort of 40-something, and he works closely with his parents in the business. He said that he used to always, because he's dyslexic, take his emails to his family members and get them to, or colleagues, and get them to check over his emails. And he says now he uses ChatGPT to compose the initial email. So he tells ChatGPT, please write a email to Jack, thanking him for lunch today, and saying I'd like to meet him on the 14th of June or whatever it might be. And ChatGPT will compose that for you in a nice way. There's one slight downside. Often it can be a little bit over floral, a bit too fluffy. And so sometimes you have to tone it down a bit because it's almost too etiquette-ly polite. And anyway, that's my one dyslexia hack that I've picked up in the last few years, and I've used a bit myself as well.
Yes, yeah. I normally have to tell it to write it again without the superlative language piece. It kind of then calms it down to something that would be closer to the way I'd write it.
Can you tell it that? Do you think? Can you tell it to tone down its?
Yeah.
I presume you can.
Yeah, I have asked it a couple of times just to do that because it's like amazing and brilliant, and it's like whoa, let's come back. Cool. Okay. Before we sign off, is there anything else you'd like to add, and where can people find you?
I'm probably easiest to be found on LinkedIn. If you look up Jack Churchill, I'll say Jack Churchill OBE. So that's me, and feel free to connect with me, send me messages. I'd love to connect with people who are interested in dyslexia. And I thank you for listening from across the world to this. It's a real pleasure to be on your show.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for taking the time this evening to talk to me on the podcast. And I want to thank everybody else for taking the time to listen. And I will speak to you in the next episode. Goodbye for now.